So let's use our tap centering technique to get this guy started. Put some of this down so it's not so noisy. Woo! This is why it's good to practice before you start. Ooh, that's feeling pretty good. Now, if your pot isn't totally like level or center, here's what we want to think about doing. So I showed you before, somewhere on here, there was my little mark. There it is. That's where I was like, okay, I'm not going to go beyond this point. And so when I'm centering it, I really want to make sure that everything's centered to this point and up. And I'm not even going to really worry about like what's going on up here. I'm just going to pick this spot. So let's check it with our needle tool and see if we did a good job. Yeah, I'm going to say that that's a good job. So I had a nice even line going all the way around. Well, even though I was keeping my tool steady and not pushing into it, I just allowed it to come out and like very lightly try to hit, and it hit evenly all the way around. So we're centered. Okay, now we're going to take our wet clay, and it is important that you're using wet clay for this. So if it's like super dried out or something like that, maybe get some different stuff, because you do need it to be a little bit sticky. Now I don't want it to be sloppy sticky, because then it's going to melt into your piece, but we do want to use our lugs. Okay, so we're going to put down 2 pieces at the same time. I'm pushing it very firmly into the wheel head, and then gently I'm molding it onto the walls of my piece. I'm putting on 2 at the same time so I don't accidentally push it off center, because otherwise what's the point of doing all that other stuff? Okay, so it's firmly into the wheel head, and then snugly against the pot. But you want to be careful, because this, remember, it's still possible to bend this rim, and we don't want to bend the rim. We want to make it nice and beautiful, and keep it round. So you want to be gentle but firm. Okay, so then when you go to wiggle this around, it should be pretty firm in place. Okay, I'm going to start off with our basic little like ribbon tool. Hopefully your tool is nice and sharp. If you're looking at this and you can start to see like a whole edge, then your tool might be a little bit on the dull side. Okay, so I'm going to start off by just leaving a little divot for my finger, so that way I can apply pressure downward so I don't accidentally like have this fling off. Now I have all of this gobbledygook over on the side, and I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to take this, I'm holding this very firmly. I don't want it to wiggle. My entire goal is to keep this super steady. And then I'm going to push it really firmly against my thumb. And you want to be, you're giving it enough pressure that you should be getting a little bit of clay coming off, like a spaghetti thing, not like a big fettuccine like noodle, just a small spaghetti thing. Speed is your friend. If you go slow, guys, this is going to be way, way harder, because you just aren't able to keep your hand steady and you end up following the wobble. Don't follow the wobble. If you notice, there's a little wobble right here, and I am going to try really hard not to follow it. And I'm going to trim all the way down to where my little thing was. on the wheel is one of the most ergonomically like nightmarish things to do, because I do spend most of my time over on the side looking at the profile. One of the things that you can do to make your ergonomics better is get a mirror and put that right here so that you can actually be watching that silhouette here without like kind of contorting your entire body. Okay, so I have a big flat surface that I would like the whole thing to be flat. So that's where I'm going to actually use this tool. This is like more of a finishing tool, at least for small pots, than it is a starting point or anything along those lines. And I'm just using this to make sure that I have a nice straight edge that I'm looking for. So I didn't take off a lot with this tool. I just am using it to level. Okay, so my outside is feeling good. I think I feel good. Okay, now I'm going to start to trim my foot ring. I always do the outside of my foot ring first. Okay, and now I can go into my inside. Look at how I'm using just the corner edge of this tool, and I'm going from the outside to the inside, and then from the inside to the outside. But it's always going from that middle point to a 3 o'clock point, not middle point to over here. Over here, you're not cutting anything if you're moving it towards you at 6. So it's always from that middle point over the edge, and then from the edge down to the bottom. Having my tool at an angle that it will catch this sharp edge. Now, you don't want your foot ring to be too narrow because it'll have a tendency to chip. I also, one of the things that I notice a lot when people are trimming is that they tend to do this line right over here and they'll just have it go straight out. Now you can have it curved. I'm going to go for something angular today because I feel angular today. But when I angle it, I'm going to angle it right now down, so that way it'll be kind of uplifting when we go further on. Now there's one other thing that our foot ring does that I forgot to mention, which is, okay, so we put our glaze on here, we flip it over, put our glaze on here, and then the glaze drips down the mug, and then it'll go, this either becomes a place where we are like, oh look, this is where I'll stop my glaze, and it'll make sense there. Or we glaze all the way to this point, but this point right here allows the glaze to have kind of a speed bump where it'll pool here before it drips all over the rest of your the rest of the kiln. And so I think that that's a really helpful thing to have, especially as a beginner. Do you always have to have a foot ring on the bottom of your pieces? No. But for our starting point and what your general assignment is, your assignment without a grade, is to trim this base and to work on creating a foot ring. Okay, let's do the little tap. That sounds good. Okay. I think I'll just trim this down just a little bit more. I know I can trim further down because I went that far down here, so I'm pretty certain that I can go down there. If you're working on this and all of a sudden it starts to get like it was going beautiful and then all of a sudden it starts to get like wobbly on you, oh, then you're 2 seconds from trimming through the bottom of it, and just leave it alone, stop working on it, and move on to the next thing, and then you can still have a pot. Okay, so now I'm going to get rid of these last little bits here. So I have my wooden knife. It is wet. I'm just going to rub that over the surface. And notice how I'm keeping this hand over here, so that way I have just because I don't want to just push at the top without some sort of pressure on here to make sure that it doesn't like fling off. Yeah, that edge looks pretty good. I could probably trim a little bit more off right there. And this last little pass and compression over the center can also help your pots from potentially cracking on the base. Yeah, I feel good about that. I feel good about that. All right, so now I'm gonna put my name on the bottom. You can use your wooden knife, or you can use your needle tool, or if you're really cool, you can go make yourself a stamp. I'm gonna so for the purposes of our online teaching, I am definitely going to make sure that I get my first and last name on here. Especially when we're trying to figure out where everything goes. This will make it so that we can actually get our stuff back to you. Okay, cool, cool, cool. We did it. Yeah, that feels good and level. So when I'm tipping this back and forth, I'm feeling for weight of our piece. That feels pretty good. Now, last little bit. I just want to go back. I don't know if you guys can see that, but there's some like little crumbs and crud right around here. And I want to get rid of that. So I'm just going to take my finger. I dipped it in a little bit of water, like it's essence of water, guys. And I'm just going to rub that over the surface. Any little areas where I'm like, oh, I don't like that. This is not a lot of water. It's essence of water. Okay, there we go. We made ourselves a tumbler.